Everybody wants to work less and do more, but the reality is they work more and they do less. So that's why we brought Mike Ficara, and he is the president of the MAGS Group and a seasoned entrepreneur and consultant. And his core focus is on the growth and scaling strategies for clients, in addition to expertise in personal brand building and social media strategy. Now, the first question I have is, how can entrepreneurs work less and do more?
Welcome to Awakened Titans podcast with Lily Patrascu. Mind-blowing conversations with influential business titans sharing how you can manifest abundance, love, joy, success through quantum awakening, quantum manifestation, quantum healing, quantum miracles, exponential business growth, and innovative products and services.
Well, it's a great question. And first off, thank you for having me on. And I mean, it's really a simple answer, right? But it's the thing I think most entrepreneurs and CEOs struggle with is delegation, right? We just don't delegate enough. And that's the problem. And I think that's really what you need to do. And that's what I help people focus on is how do we delegate more? Because that's how you work less and focus on what's important.
Thank you. So tell us the secret to your success and your journey to getting there.
Yeah, I mean, I say my story now is the typical entrepreneur story, but I didn't know it when I was younger. I was terrible in school, never did well, barely graduated high school, went to college, actually failed out of college, and, kind of was waiting tables for a while. And then one of my old teachers came in and said, "Do you want to be a substitute teacher?" And I said, "Sure, that sounds like the easiest job ever." So I could substitute teach during the day and wait tables at night. I was like, I'm going to be rich. So I did that. And when I was teaching, substitute teaching, I actually fell in love with teaching, went back to college, finished my degree in education, then ended up going to get my master's, ironically, in educational leadership. So after teaching for about 10 years, I'm like, the only way to grow in this industry is to become an administrator. So I took an AP curriculum job. There's not a lot of success career paths in education. It's very clear. It's like teacher, administrator, superintendent. Like that's as good as it gets. And that was kind of the path I thought I would be on is, okay, like maybe one day I'll be a principal. And that was kind of the goal. But I took a job as the AP curriculum and unknowingly went to go work for a startup. They were actually running a startup out of this elementary school, which was crazy. And we ended up growing that startup. It was an online learning management system, delivering classes to students. We grew it to about 34 states. It got investment from a guy here in the States by the name of Huizenga, who was the guy that used to own Blockbuster Video. And he owned the Miami Dolphins, a few sports teams here in Florida. And I was promised everything, stock options, equity, my own private plane. I got none of that. I got to fly on his private 747 around the country, which was cool. But at the end of the day, when that was over, I was about to go back to the classroom. My wife said, "What are you doing?" She said, "You learned all this stuff." She says, "I think you should help other people in business. It's something you've always wanted to do." So really the second half of my career, it's almost been split in two. So I did about 12 years in the classroom, really for about the last 13 now. It's almost not becoming split anymore. I've been helping small to medium-sized businesses grow and scale with what I kind of learned through that startup and investment experience. And then just continue to learn, I say, from all the people I've worked with.
Thank you. Now, you look like a very cool dude, like a very fun entrepreneur. I wonder, does having fun have anything to do with working less and doing more?
Having fun is absolutely the key to working less and doing more. And, I recently did a post about this. Scheduling fun and relaxing and downtime and things that are entertaining are really a skill. And I think not a lot of people understand how to do that. I work with, a lot of different CEOs, and they're the 24/7 people. All they do is burn out and grind on this. And then I work with other people who are the 7/24 people, meaning they only work probably 7 days a month and take the other 24 off. And they're having fun. They're taking their team out. They're partying. They're doing things. You're going to dinners. I mean, that's where, and I always say I'm big on, and you get so many messages on LinkedIn. "Hey, we'd love to help you with your lead generation. What would you do with 100 leads?" And I'm like, I'd probably throw them out the window because I'm about building relationships. I've done more business over a cigar or at a steak dinner, or just networking and doing fun things with people or going to a sporting event. I've met more people that way than I have in what would necessarily be your traditional business lead generation strategies.
Thank you. So tell us what entrepreneurs should do to work less and do more.
I think the key is, and a lot of CEOs have what I call CEO-itis. They're in love with their business. They're in love with what they're doing. I think it depends on what type of entrepreneur you are. And sometimes you do have to be in that sort of situation, if you will. I was watching one of your previous episodes where you had the CEO from GreenPal on, and he was also on one of my podcasts. And he said it in the first few years of your business, you got to do everything to learn the business. You got to know it, right? So it's not that you could do that right out the gate. And I think what a lot of entrepreneurs don't understand is they want to be at the finish line, at the starting line, right? But too many entrepreneurs stay on the starting line and never start running the race either, because they think it's like right there. It's like, no, it's a journey. So you got to know at what point are you in the race that you got to, slow down, and what point in the race do you got to hydrate? And I think not enough entrepreneurs know when to let go and start delegating stuff. And to me, the key sign is, number one, when you're feeling burnt out, number two, when the business is growing. A lot of people want to try to delegate too soon. That doesn't work either. You have to do it. I always say it's just like teaching, right? You have to learn it. And in teaching, we have what's called the gradual release model. So it's I do, we do, you do, right? So you have to do it as the CEO. Then you have to do it with your team or your employees. And then you have to let them do it on their own. You have to be willing to let them fail. You have to be willing to let them make mistakes. You may do it at 110%. You're going to lose 30% right out the gate. They're going to do it 80% as good as you do, but that's okay. You know what I mean? And that's how a business grows. But if you're doing everything as a CEO, and I recently saw Jeff Bezos said this, and I love this quote. He goes, your job as a leader of an organization is not to make all the decisions. He goes, it's probably to make about 7 or 8 important decisions a day that move the organization in the right direction. And that's really what you need to be doing as a CEO. And the problem is, if you're working in your business, you're not growing your business.
Thank you. How do you trust yourself to know that it's okay to kind of start delegating to other people?
You don't. You have to be okay not trusting yourself. You have to be okay with the failure. You have to be okay with letting go. It's just, I have 4 kids, so I say it's the same thing with parenting. If I sat there and, is it scary sending your kids to school in kindergarten? Absolutely. Is it scary sending them? I've got a first grader, I've got a middle schooler, and I got a high schooler. Is it difficult releasing each one of them into those scenarios? Absolutely, 100%. But I can't go there and do it for them. Eventually, I have to let them do it. I have to know what they're going to succeed and what they're going to fail at. It's the same thing in business. You can't trust yourself. You can't trust people. You just have to do it. If we got in a car and trusted everybody that was driving on the road, that'd be the stupidest thing in the world. You have to be aware of what's going on, but you still have to be involved and do that. I think too many CEOs and entrepreneurs want the perfect solution, and they want it to be easy and be like, oh, I could trust this person to give it to them and they're going to do it. No, you almost have to not trust them. No, they're not going to fail, but then you have to coach them up and get them to where you want them to be. And that's okay. Most people are scared of the failure. The failure is the first step to success.
Thank you. Don't you find, though, that there are certain things that you feel only you can do?
Sure. But just because you could doesn't mean you should. You know what I mean? And it's one of those things where you have to ask yourself, and it goes back to that Jeff Bezos quote, right? Are those things that you're doing moving the needle to the growth of your business? Running payroll is not moving the needle of your business. You should be outsourcing that. Posting to social media, unless you're really good at it, should not be something that's on your plate as a CEO. You should be outsourcing that. Most CEOs are doing too much of the wrong tasks, right? And then there's the key things that even if you are good at it, you want to get your business to a point where it runs in spite of you, not because of you. You know what I mean? And the really good CEOs know how to do that. They know how to find a really good number 2. They know how to find, and if you look at all these guys, you look at Steve Jobs, you look at Jeff Bezos, you look at Mark Zuckerberg, they all have a number 2 that could basically do a lot of things. There's a succession plan. You know what I mean? There's things that you could know that I could do. Look, me and my wife as parents, and I always go back to parenting because I think it's the greatest example. We're great as a couple parenting our kids. Now, if I'm out of town, my wife runs the house a little bit differently. Or if she's out of town, which she isn't as much as I am, but the house is run a little bit differently, right? But together, we know how to run it well. And that's okay. And as a CEO, one of you always has to be able to step out. You as a CEO, you should be able to step out, and there should be that secondary person in there that's going to be able to help run and move your business. So I think one of the biggest keys is finding who that secondary person is. And sometimes it's a low-level person you bring up in your organization, but you should always have a number 2 or a backup or a duplicate of yourself. One person, if not 2. I said in the best scenarios, you have 2 of them. You have a left and a right hand that you've duplicated that are basically you. And even though you're really good at it, you can give that to them, and you still may be the best at it. You may be the face of that with your business, but at the end of the day, your number 1 and number 2 can do those things for you, once again, at 80%, which is okay.
Thank you. What about if your clients are really, really special, like celebrities and stuff like that they need special treatment, and they have really a relationship just with you, and you're not 100% sure that someone else could actually deal with them the same way you can?
I love this question. So I have celebrity clients I work with, and it's funny. I went to an event in Chicago, and I brought my 14-year-old son with me because he wants to get into entrepreneurship. And we were meeting with a couple of my celebrity clients were there, and we were talking with them and just having conversations. And afterwards we left, and he really wants to get into entrepreneurship. So when we left that meeting, I said, hey, what'd you learn? He goes, I was shocked that celebrities are just like regular people. I'm like, yeah, like, what'd you think of her? He goes, like, yeah, like you talk about the same things you talk about like normal people with. I'm like, yeah, like we discussed the same topics, the same things. It was the same as if I was with a non-celebrity client, right? I think that's the key. You have to, and listen, most entrepreneurs don't realize this. I think you have to decide if you want to be a coach, if you want to be a personal trainer, if you want to be an executive chef or a personal chef, it's a harsh thing to say. You really don't have a business. You're a solo person that basically is a individual employee for people. That's not a business, right? That's two different things. If you want to run a business, even if you have celebrity clients, you tell them like, look, I know you want me to do this for you. I'm the brains behind it. These are the people that operate it. So if I'm doing marketing for a celebrity client or I'm doing something for that, it's different if you're doing one-on-one coaching and things like that. But if you're running an actual business, then that's way different than being a coach or consultant. Like, I don't think coaches and consultants are entrepreneurs. I don't think they're even business people, to be honest with you. Now, some of them have turned their coaching and consulting into businesses, but if you are the key thing, and if you're not coaching or you're not speaking to somebody, you're not dealing with someone one-on-one, you don't have a business. You have a very high paying, and listen, I know some people that get paid $10,000 an hour to sit down with celebrities and coach them and mentor them, but that's not a business. That's it. That's a job. You get hired for small little jobs. You're a contractor. I don't really see that as much as a business as somebody that's actually doing a process or a product. And I think the methodologies then are different. And I think we overuse the term entrepreneur, I think, very much, and business owner today. It's almost cliche in a sense. And I think that a lot of times I've sat down with people and I tell them that, like, you don't have a business. You have to stop thinking that, because if it's all dependent on you, that's not a business. Like, you're looking to get hired by people to do a job. That's a very different approach, because then I can't outsource what you do. Or can we take what you're doing and yes, I'm the key. Here's the plan I'm going to put together for you for health, for coaching, for whatever it may be. And then this person manages the health side of it. This person manages, can we turn it into a business? But if you're in that case, you don't have a business. And they say on Shark Tank all the time, you got a hobby or you're an employee. And it's a tough reality for a lot of people to swallow.
Thank you. For entrepreneurs starting out, what do you recommend when they know, for example, they can hire, XYZ person to do certain tasks that they don't have to do necessarily, but they don't have a budget for that? What do you suggest they do?
I mean, look, and I had this question once when I was speaking, and I gave the answer. There's two things to do with that. Number one, you just got to do it. You got to embrace the suck, right? You got to embrace the bad thing, and you're going to have to do the thing you don't like. But that's the very first thing you offboard once you start to get the revenue, right? So if you're like, I hate running payroll, or I hate posting on social media, well, once you got that first couple $1,000s a month that you could hire somebody with, that's what you put that money towards. The other option is, if it's really holding you back from growing your business, and it's really holding you back from scaling your business, then you need to go out, get a credit card or take a loan and start paying somebody to do that task. And that's the hard thing. This is entrepreneurship is like going to Vegas. The house always wins. But also, if you're not willing to gamble, you can't win. So, it's like going to Vegas and saying, oh, I didn't win anything. Well, did you gamble? No, I didn't gamble. Well, how'd you expect to win? You know what I mean? You gotta. So most entrepreneurs are scared. Well, I don't want to get into debt. And you got to be comfortable with debt. You got to be comfortable with debt. I know entrepreneurs that take on a lot of debt in order to be successful. So you got to really learn to balance that. I think and listen, everyone's got to decide what their risk tolerance is and being, able to sort of step into that pool.
Thank you. Do you find that coming across as a very fun, kind of cool dude, do you find that attracts business for you or deters? The reason I ask is because, for example, my partner is very funny and he's very fun, but I find that he still kind of doesn't show that so much, like, yeah, you can see it. He speaks at a large event, but he doesn't show that so much in social media. Like, you would think he's just like a regular conservative dude, right?
Yeah.
And I am of the opinion that when you do authentically come across the way you really are, you can attract more business. Is that your opinion as well?
You are 1,000% correct. And I always, because I say, like, because I was a failure in school, there's a chapter in my book called I Failed First Grade. Because I failed in school, I always thought I had to look overly professional or act overly professional or try to sound overly smart. And I did that for a good majority of my career. And to be honest with you, it didn't work out. I've spent the last 4 or 5 years pivoting to being the guy that smokes cigars, that eats steak, that like travels a lot, that does fun things. I've gotten more, like I said, I've got more leads and connections. Like I have season tickets to the Miami Dolphins here, and I tailgate at every game and I post it online. I've gotten more business people when I go to big meetings. I've had CEOs of big corporations come up to me and be like, I really want to come to your tailgate and have a steak with you, or I really want to come and have a cigar with you. I mean, and it's just, I get so many more messages on being the person that I am. And the flip side of that is too, I now get to work with the people that I like. I think when I wasn't being who I wanted to be, I was getting clients that I didn't want to be with. Now that I'm starting to act like myself and be myself, I'm attracting people that A, know who I am, B, want to be around me, and C, know how to have fun. I'm getting the clients that I should be getting, as opposed to getting the clients that maybe like look fancy or sound good, or like I tell people I don't want to work with big corporate clients that much because I don't like that structure. I like small business owners. I like kind of that hustle, but I also like people who have families. I like people that want to do fun things. I like people that don't stress too much, that aren't fatalists, that don't think Chicken Little, the sky is falling. So the more authentic I've become online, I've attracted more authentic people like myself that I enjoy working with. It's like if you go on a dating site and you put that you're 6'5" and you're really 5'5", like people are going to be disappointed when they see you. You know what I mean? So on the and I was never on a dating app. I got married way before that became big, but I've heard the stories. But if you tell the truth about who you are, and I think business is like dating, is like marriage, is like relationships. The more honest and authentic you are, you're going to attract the right person. How many people do you know that marry the wrong person because they maybe looked a certain way, or they made a certain amount of money, or they were a certain whatever, and the marriage didn't work out because they weren't their authentic self. They married for a situation. They didn't marry for success. And then the same is true in business. You have to marry your clients and the people you work with for success.
Thank you. The other thing I find is that when you are actually fun, you kind of differentiate so much online, because most people are just not. But I think that's how they are, right? Like they are conservative, they are professional and whatever. And I find that, for example, I prefer the fun way. Like I prefer to connect with people that can make a joke about something, or can see the fun side even in the down things that happen, in the downturns. And I find that when you have, for example, fun people at your event, you just experience life completely differently. And I do find that you see better opportunities. And because a lot of times, let's say you go to an event, and if you go there, not smiling and not truly connecting, then you miss out on a lot of stuff that could happen. Whereas as you're laughing, I find that you become more attractive to people, to opportunities as well. Because people are attracted to people who smile, and they want to come to you, and they want to talk to you about their latest property project or whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think more importantly, successful people, right? And listen, as young entrepreneurs, you should be hustling, you should be grinding. Hard work always wins, yada, 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 all that stuff. But I think as you get older too, especially, the more people start to see the fruits of their labor and the fruits of their hard work, they want to enjoy it. But more importantly, they want to enjoy it with other people. We see this with athletes. We see it with celebrities, right? Where they have an entourage or a group of people that when they become successful or big, they take their friends with them, or they do different things. Like Sarah Blakely, the CEO of Spanx, she always takes her friends on a trip with her. Her husband, Jesse Itzler, too, who I took one of his courses, just a great guy. He does the same thing. He does, I think it's called a Ryan Rule trip. I'm drawing a blank on it. I may have said that wrong, but where he goes on a trip with his friends. The more success you get, the more you want to celebrate it with other people. There's different stages of business you're at, and I think you have to know that, right? Like I said, like a senior in high school doesn't want to hang out with a kindergartner because they don't have anything in common. The same is true in business, right? So And I think you even talked about this in one of your posts about, if you want to be around a wealthy person or you want to be around someone who's successful, you have to be a part of their thing. Like, look at what they do. If they're, buy their book, if they're into cigars, like I can't tell you how many people I reach out to them and like, because I started my own cigar company, I'm like, hey, listen, I want to send you a couple of cigars. They're like, oh my gosh, like that means so much to me. They could afford to probably buy 20 boxes of my cigars, but I'm sending them one for free. And they're like, oh, that's so nice. I talked about this on one of my social posts. I always pick out the check when I go out to dinner. Why? Because it's, it's a sign of respect. And even if somebody makes more money than me, I don't expect them to pick up the check. Especially if I invite them out, I should be picking up the check, right? There's these things that successful people, everyone's always, pardon my French, kissing their ass. They want people that are just real and authentic, because at the end of the day, most successful people I know didn't start that way. They got there and they kind of missed out on having the fun when they were probably younger or in their 20s and 30s because they were hustling so hard. They want to enjoy it more when they're in their 40s and 50s.
Thank you. Do you have any routines and habits that you use in order to work less and do more?
Yes and no, right? I do try to delegate. I meet with my team every morning. I think that's the first thing, right? Is getting a pulse on where things are at. So I meet with my team personally every morning, and then I meet with the various teams of my clients throughout the week to know where we're going and how things are going. So that's kind of the first thing, is just talking to people. I love technology. I use Slack. I use all CRMs. I use all that stuff. But at the end of the day, I find 15-minute conversations are actually the best way to avoid hour-long reading of emails, right? So I'm like, just give me the high points. That's kind of the one habit. But really, I have to stay fluid because it depends, and there's been days where, like, tomorrow I've got a breakfast meeting in the morning, so I'm not meeting with my team in the morning, but I move some things to the afternoon. I try to be flexible. I'm traveling I'm traveling a lot this month. So like Thursday and Friday, I travel. So my days today are very rigid, but I have no meetings when I'm traveling on Thursday and Friday, just so I can be present and enjoy that time. It's have fun, have pleasure. We're going to do a little bit of both. But I try to vary those things. So I think I don't try to have so much routines as I have. And this was very difficult to do. I had to learn to become comfortable with inconsistency, flexibility, and being willing to move things around and stretching things. I used to feel really bad asking a client to move a meeting because I'm traveling. I used to be like, oh, they're going to get so pissed off at me. Da, da, da. Now I'm just like, hey, I'm traveling this day. I can't meet. Can we move it here? I had to learn to be comfortable with being flexible. And that was probably the hardest routine to get into, to be honest with you, because I thought I had to be more rigid. Once I got out of the routine and became more flexible, I actually became more successful.
Thank you. Tell us more about what you were able to achieve by working less and doing more.
I think two things. Number one, I got to spend more time with my family, and sort of do things. And when I say work less too, I think I work less on the unnecessary, right? And it allowed me to focus on the things that were moving the needle and that were important to me. I would skip a networking event maybe because I'm like, well, I got to write my social media posts and I got to edit this video and I got to do this and edit this podcast and do this and this. And I'm like, wait a second, I could outsource that. And then I could go to the networking event, have a good time, and meet a bunch of people. You know what I mean? So it was like trading fun work for not fun work. And I think that, and then really honestly spending the time with my family, last week, I know this may air a little bit ago, but last week at the time we're recording this, I went to the World Series with my kids. Right. And I was able to do that because of the flexibility. I didn't know I was going to do that I think it was like Friday the week before. We decided Tuesday night, we're going to fly out to New York to go watch the World Series. So it's being able to sort of do those things. Whereas I think in a previous version, I was a little more rigid and not willing to work less and take that time with my family. And it's just stepping away. And I think that's the biggest thing, is being present in the moment you're in. If I'm going to disconnect from work, I'm going to disconnect from work. My wife's birthday is at the end of the month. We're going to go stay at a resort. I'm not going to focus on work. I'm going to just focus on her, where some people will be on their phones and, oh, we're here. Yeah, but we're laying out in the sun. So I'm going to focus on the time with her, And that's really, I think, what it allowed me to do, was just be present in the moments that are fun, because the annoying email from the customer that's upset is going to be there when you get back, whether you look at it on vacation or whether you're at the sporting event with your family. It's still going to be there. And even if you answer it right away and they don't reply, what are you going to do? You're going to sit there the whole time and ruin the event to see if they replied? I don't even look at it. It'll be there when I get back. They're going to be just pissed off when I get back. Because all right, now what's the difference? I'll solve the problem later. And I think that's the really key, is it allowed me to be present so much more.
Thank you. One important thing that I find all entrepreneurs would love is to have a team that kind of helps them to manage certain tasks. So for example, with this podcast, I don't edit anything, right? So all my podcast is edited. That's why I typically get it out in a couple of days. Okay. And they do the posting as well, which is really great. Then they do the automatic, emailing to everyone.
Love
and sometimes SMS as well. And there's so many tasks that they manage to do for me. And that's why it feels a lot more relaxing to actually be alive, right? And I think one important thing is that even when you are working, right? Let's say you have, for example, I have on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I have back-to-back interviews, sometimes 16 of them, right?
Wow.
And what I find quite cool is that, let's say, in the off chance that either someone cancels or I have a 5-minute interval between the two things, I take the opportunity to go and grab a coffee, but I'm doing it dancing, right? So it's so important to kind of like have fun even while you're working so that you actually feel like you're not working. And my motto in life is do nothing and make money. Now, it doesn't pan out that way, but
Sure.
it's I have an interpretation of it, which is that when you love what you do, then you feel like you're working less, right?
Yes.
So I wonder, what is it that you do that enables you to feel like you're working less?
I think you hit the nail on the head, right? It's loving what you do, when I was a teacher, one of the most difficult things about teaching was not teaching itself. It was other people saying, "Oh, you must not make a lot of money. That must be really difficult." It was more the opinions of the people on the outside. I loved being in the classroom. I loved teaching the kids. I loved what I did. Um, it was the noise on the outside. So I think the first thing key is to get rid of the noise on the outside, right? Like you said, almost cut that out. The second thing is to really love what you do, and I think it's hard for people to do. Don't get me wrong. It's hard to do that because I think financial burden and impact is real, right? Like I said, I got 4 kids. Like, life is expensive. One of the reasons I want an admin job was my wife was pregnant with our second kid. I'm like, I got to do something to pay for this. Kids are expensive. But on the same hand, anytime I ever took on a client or a job that I didn't like, I was miserable. And I may have been making money from it, but anytime I took clients that could maybe pay me less but were more fun to work with, and they turned out over a longer term period being more profitable. So it made it more fun. And if you love something, you don't mind getting that random text message. You don't mind getting that random phone call. You're able to do the things that I think you enjoy. Like I said, even starting the cigar company, I did that because it's something that I really loved. It was a hobby of mine that I was passionate about, and it's been fun going through the process. On the same hand, just like you did with the podcast, I found somebody, though. I said, there's a lot of work with this I know I can't do and I shouldn't do. So I'm not making a lot of money from this, but I'm enjoying it, and I have somebody doing all the heavy lifting. And I think that's the key. And you said what you're doing with your podcast, and you asked even in the business, it may be worth the debt sometimes if you let it not get to you, to have that peace of mind. Because if you're happier, you know how it is. A task you don't like takes 3 times as long on average than a task that you do like to do. So, and we all know we do it, right? We procrastinate. Oh, I know I got to do this. You pin the email or you make a Post-it note to do it, and it sits there on your computer and you look at it and you never get it done because you don't love to do it. But if you could give it to somebody else, do you know how good it feels when I outsource something I hate doing and then it ends up in my inbox and I'm like, ooh, look at that. There's the financial reports. Thank God I didn't have to put that together. It's almost more rewarding for me than if I did it myself. So I outsource the things that bring me joy when I receive them back because it's like Christmas, and then I work on the things that I love. And you said it, you have to have fun. You were jamming out before we came on. I mean, and even I used to go on Facebook Live a lot and dance and do a little dance before I came on. I haven't done that in probably 6 years. Do you know people still come up to me and be like, I love your dancing in the morning? Because like you said, people remember the things that are fun. I used to post really serious content. Then I started to do Forget About It Fridays, where I just, I say, hey, it's Forget About It Friday. And then I give a little bit of a business tip or I relate something by trying to make it fun. People come up to me. They don't speak about anything particular, but they always come to me and they're like, hey, Forget About It Friday. People want to associate with the things that are fun and enjoyable,
Yeah. The other thing that I found recently, okay, and not just recently, in general, is that when you are actually having fun, what happens is that you kind of like elevate your frequency, your vibration, you're feeling so good that sometimes really great opportunities come to you. So last week, I met this investor for one of my clients, and it was like pretty much whatever he was looking for. And he didn't even ask me to look for that. Okay. So what was funny about it is that sometimes things come to me without having to do anything, just because I'm in this high vibe, right? So I find that you perhaps are in the same situation. And do you find that when you were, I don't know, a teacher, did you have a similar vibe, or
Oh,
are you finding yourself like more high vibe now that you have a different lifestyle?
I think in teaching it was the same as business, right? When you started out, you were nervous, you didn't know how to do. I was a little more maybe strict, and it depended on the class too. But as I got more comfortable with it, I think a little more fun. I would show a lot of movies that, I didn't use the textbook. I taught ethics and Bible, so I didn't use the textbook a lot. I used movies, I used group projects, I did things that were as I got more comfortable in my career. And I think it's like anything else, right? If you don't know how to do something, you're less competent. If you do know how to do something, you're more competent. So the more I did it, the better I get. But yeah, I had fun with the kids, and I knew it was time for me too to move to the administration. And I'll never forget this. I was doing a retreat with a group of my students. They were one of my favorite classes. And I stood up in front of them and I was just honest. I was like, guys, I don't even know if I like teaching anymore. I don't know if I love this anymore. I don't have that same joy. And one of the kids came up to me. She goes, "That's the realest thing I ever heard." She goes, "I can't believe you said that. I've never heard a teacher be that honest." And that doesn't have to do with me. I think it just has to do with us as people. The more honest we are with other people and the more honest we are with ourselves, the happier we're going to be. Like, that's how I knew the transition was there. Was like, it's not bringing me joy anymore. And I think it's hard for people to accept that in life. What brought you joy yesterday, 6 months ago, 6 years ago, may not bring you joy now. And sometimes that's okay. The happiness you experience and something that may have made me happy working on 4 years ago doesn't make me happy anymore. I'm outsourcing it. You know what I mean? So I think you have to be willing to know where the shifts in your happiness are happening as well. Because we're humans, right? We get bored with stuff. Sometimes things aren't happy. Sometimes they aren't fun anymore. And I think, yeah, I mean, and I think if you learn how to consistently bring that vibe, we know the person too that was always happy and always giddy and always laughing, right? And now they're miserable. Why? Because they stayed in the same place. They didn't grow, and I think that's the key. You got to be growing.
Thank you. How do you know what to delegate and when to delegate?
I mean, it's different for everybody, right? I think and I kind of just mentioned when you don't love doing it anymore, that's the first sign, right? If it's holding back the growth of your business, if you're saying to yourself, "I'm so busy dealing with this little stuff that I can't focus on the things that are important," then it needs to be delegated. I have a client, he is a ninja at running Facebook ads. That is what he's really good at. But he's also handling the shipping and the receiving and the ordering and da 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 da. I told him, we got to take all that off your plate, and all I need you to focus on is Facebook ads because that's how we're going to make money. You know what I mean? So if it's holding you back from the business, I think that's the sign. And if you don't love doing it anymore, that's the second sign. So, and like I said, it's not always a financial thing. It's a movement thing. And sometimes if you make every decision based on finance and business, you're sure to fail. You are very sure to fail. You really got to listen. You got to listen to your heart. Your heart and your mind are probably, you got to balance those two things,
Thank you. Is there any sort of mindset shift that needs to happen in order to be able to work less and do more?
I think it's a guilt mindset, right? Because I think as entrepreneurs, yeah, you got a mindset out of the guilt. Like, I mean, and I work with a lot of female entrepreneurs, so we talk about mom guilt a lot, and it's like, oh, like, what if I'm away from my kids, or what if I'm this, what if I'm that, in business, it's like, well, I feel if I'm, what if I'm not, the CEOs or something, I say, well, what if I do go on a 2-week vacation? What are all my employees going to say? Or, are they going to think that I'm on vacation and they're back there working hard? And then you have to be able to remove some of the guilt you may have. You have to stop, like I said, the hardest part of teaching was not teaching. It was the outside voices from everyone else saying, you're not going to make a lot of money. You're not going to be able to do this. You're not going to be able to do that. You need to be able to tune out the rhetoric and the BS and the noise, and you need to remove the guilt, and you need to be able to do what's best for you. And that's a very thin line between that and being selfish, right? Because I think there's a flip side of it, right? Where a lot of CEOs are just tyrants and they don't work hard and they show up late, they leave early, and they put everything on their employees. It's a balance, right? And I think the people, if you create a corporate culture though, and you create a company culture where you show your people that you care for them and you support them, and they know that you're there for them, even though you're working less, they don't know that you work hard still and that you're doing it for the business. And I think a lot of CEOs and entrepreneurs have this entrepreneurial guilt because scroll through Instagram, scroll through TikTok, scroll through LinkedIn. You got to hustle, you got to grind, you got to do this. Blah, blah, blah. Listen, of course, it's the most stupid analogy in the world. Of course, hard work's going to beat that. If I work less and spend more time with my family, and there's some idiot over here outworking me, is he going to pass me? Absolutely. But you know what? I don't care. You want to know why? Because in 10 years, that's not going to matter, because I know I had that moment at the World Series with my kids. In 20 or 30 years, when my kids are grown up and they go to the World Series with their kids, they're going to remember that moment. I'm not going to be able to tell my son, "Hey, son, sorry we didn't make any memories, but I beat Joe Schmo over here. I outworked him." Is my son going to care? Absolutely not. And I always say this, look, when I'm on my deathbed, the guy I beat or the employees I had or the customers I had, when I'm dying, they're not going to be there. My kids are. My wife, my wife's way gonna outlive me. But the people that care about me, that love me, are going to be there. And if I'm not focusing my energy on those people, that's where the mistake is. And too many entrepreneurs and CEOs are focusing on their competition and oh, you got to prove your haters wrong. I could care less. You know what I mean? I'm focusing on my family, what's best for my family, what's best for my life, and what's going to help me grow. And I put that philosophy. My business is the Max Group, like you said in the beginning. It's named after my kids, Michael, Anthony, Giovanni, and Stella. That is how I named the business, because that's what I'm about. I'm about creating a life for them and for me and my family that will enjoy, that will create great moments that will live on forever. A business will come and go. It's like the Roman Empire fell. So did Sears, so did Toys R Us, so did all the big conglomerates that were 20, 30 years ago, these amazing companies. They're all gone. So it doesn't matter. Focus on what's important,
Thank you. How can entrepreneurs find you?
Well, I'm in the witness protection program. No, I'm just kidding. So it's real easy to find me. Mike Ficara on all social media, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, to search Mike Ficara, MikeFicara.com. You can also find me there. Links to all my social media as well. And I'm always, love talking to people, love being on podcasts, love doing this stuff. So shoot me a DM, say hello. If you let me know that you heard me on your show, if you DM me on any of my social media and they said they heard me on your show, I will send them a cigar and a book. They can choose both or one or the other. I'm happy to send them one for free. They just got to DM me. Very simple.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential business titans, providing you with the insights to awaken to your full potential, so you can get paid to be yourself, find true happiness, and manifest anything you desire.